Hi, loves, and welcome back to the Get Loved Up podcast. Today, I have a very special soul for you, and you are going to hopefully fall in love as much as I am. So, just to get started, let me show you a little bit of her shine. Rha Goddess is a sought after speaker, entrepreneurial soul coach, and the spirit behind hundreds of breakthrough change makers, visionaries, and soul entrepreneurs around the world. Her work has been featured in The Times, Variety, Essence, Forbes, Red Book, Fast Company, the Chicago Tribune, and among others. She was chosen as the top 10 game changers by Music and Visionaries magazine. She is the CEO of Move the Crowd and has a movement of over 3 million entrepreneurs dedicated to the reimagining work as a vehicle for creative expression, financial freedom, and societal transformation. Rha's book, The Calling, leverages her unique methodology into a step-by-step blueprint for finding your purpose and making your most profitable contribution to the world. Rha, welcome.
Thank you so much, Koya. It's my joy to be here. Truly my joy to be here.
And you are such a fierce female and such an inspiration to me. And I just want to get started with just you sharing how did you find your calling? Did you always know that you wanted to be this fierce woman in the world, or did you have some doubt when you got started?
No, I mean it's been a long journey, and I say that I am one of these people who, like the universe spirit pointed to my calling, and I was trying to run the other way. And I recognize that there are many of us out there that, spirit is tapping on our shoulder, the universe is touching us, and we're trying to do everything but but that.
It's so true, like that resistance.
Yeah, very much so. And a lot of the reasons why I ran from what it was because I couldn't imagine how I could do this and eat, which in my work I find is also often the number one reason why people don't step into, their purpose and calling. And, in the book I speak to what I've discovered are sort of the 3 top concerns. But if you were to ask me what is the most, popular one or the one I hear the most, it's often that financial concern. And, spirit God was showing me this is your life's work. And I was like, that's all nice, God, but people pay me checks to do this over here. So I'm just going to be over here because I don't even know what you're talking about. And then one day one night it all came to a head. I was on my way home from a consulting gig, and I was living in Brooklyn at the time, Bed-Stuy. Shout out Bed-Stuy. And I was walking, up the walkway to my brownstone, and a brother pulled up on a bike, and he was asking me about a neighbor and where they lived, and I couldn't recall the name of the neighbor, and this was a pretty close-knit community. And when I looked up, I'm looking in my head searching. When I looked down, he's pointing a gun. And we had a sort of back and forth exchange, but before we sort of got into it, I felt this beam of energy come down through the top of my head and move all the way through into the soles of my feet, sort of planting me in place. And he said, give me your money. And my mouth opened, and whatever was holding me down in that moment said, brother, I don't have anything for you. And he threatened to shoot, and he did. And I saw the light flash. I saw the smoke curl up out the end of the barrel, and and heard the sound. But fortunately for me, whatever was holding me there, again, I don't know where the bullet went, but he and I both know. And, it was really fascinating because it's one of those moments where he looked down and I looked down and we looked at each other like, did you see that kind of thing? And he continued to fire. And then ultimately the gun jammed and he jumped on his bike. And I think he was, as shocked as I was. And he, kind of threw a thread over his shoulder and ran down the street. And, and as much as I don't know where the bullets went, Koya, the message was not lost on me, right? My jig was up. Spirit was sort of saying to me, either you are going to do the work that you're here to do, or we are going to take you out. And it was, it was my moment of of true surrender to, to my purpose and to my calling.
Wow. I am sorry you had to experience that. And I know that had to have been traumatic. And, I know sometimes when people experience trauma, there are things that happen afterward. You keep recalling that moment. Was that moment in that moment, or did you experience any PTSD from that moment? Or were you just like, that was a miracle?
Yeah, no, lots of flashbacks kept playing over and over. But the message also kept playing over and over, which was, this is not what you're here to do. You're here to do more. You're here to be more. And it's time. I talk a lot about, sometimes we're in this context of what we call new age, or we're in this context of what we call spirituality, and people have a perception about this as being sort of just warm and fuzzy and airy and fairy. And I'm like, the universe is gangster.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with you that the universe is gangster.
It doesn't play. So it will, if it has something that it wants for you, it will tap you on the shoulder gently the first time, and then it comes again. Maybe it knocks a little harder, and you know what I mean. But there becomes a point where you're being invited into is undeniable, and our capacity to listen. And for me, this is really where the humility comes into play, and is so important, because spirit in the universe, however we describe it, source, creativity, is talking to us all the time. And we are so hard pressed around listening, right? And honoring what we hear. And so, so I had that challenge. I was quite hard headed. And so, it had to bring it that way for me to really get the message. But I'm so thankful I did.
That's so powerful, and such a jarring awakening. And was that the moment, or did it take a couple of times for you to kind of wake up to your calling? Did you do other things like after that and like, oh, this is not it? Or was it like, okay, I got it after that?
No, it was an unfolding, because what happened was I was then getting visions and glimpses of myself on stages, or talking to people, or working with people. And I had no idea how to get from where I was to what I was seeing. And a lot of praying and journaling and meditating and asking for the words and asking for the clarity and asking to be shown. And it was a process probably over about 2 years of really being in that space of receiving and deep dialogue with spirit through my journaling process, where all of a sudden the language began to come, and the guidance. And I think the guidance was there, but just my ability to really listen to it and honor it and obey it. It took time to cultivate the courage and the discipline to be able to do that, right? But as I was able to hear it more, and as I was able to recognize the guidance and see the guidance as guidance, and as I was willing more to follow the breadcrumbs, even when they didn't make sense to me, that was when the magic, and the mystery, right, started to really, really show up. And coincidence was not coincidence, right? Serendipity really began to show up in my life. And I knew, like, oh, okay, there's something bigger operating here other than just little old me and my opinion of how it should go.
Right. And I know you surrounded yourself by people that you looked up to and you respected. So tell me the transition from, okay, I'm not going to be in here in these streets, but I need to surround myself. Because in my book, Let Your Fears Make You Fierce, I talk about you got to get an A-team. Yeah. And you found that out very soon.
Yeah. So for me, once, and to your point, I had several come to Jesus moments. That was the first one that kind of put me on my path. Right. And then I had another come to Jesus moment about.
And how old were you when that situation happened? Do you remember?
I would say probably late 20s. Right. And then, and it's interesting because that situation, I had just recently found Queen Afua and was in the midst of an 86-day cleansing fast and vision quest into my new name. And so, you know what I mean? And so there was just a way that, and I was 21 days in, and I was, excited in the fast and, shaking it up. And then here this came and it shook it all the way up. So, you know, the combination of that work with Queen, and then that moment really got me on the path of like, okay, what is my work in the world? But I still had a mindset of scarcity. As many of us do, we can find our passion and we can find our purpose, and we can discover and lock into what it is that we are supposed to be doing in the world. But the ability to then monetize it and to feel okay with monetizing it, to feel worthy of being willing to receive compensation, reward, acknowledgement, recognition, however we define it, around what we believe our purpose is or what we believe our work is another thing unto itself. Right? It's a whole other thing.
It's a whole nother
Whole
level,
other thing.
a whole nother level. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's all of around the worth and like feeling worthy. So when was it that you started to feel that worthiness, that, you know what, I'm worth more than this?
So, you know, your question around my circle. So my second come to Jesus moment was coming home from a trip doing work as a cultural envoy for the State Department. And I had recently returned from Rwanda, and Rwanda just rocked me in ways I cannot even describe. That might be another podcast episode, girl. But what I will say is that I arrived home, and what I thought I was going to make on the journey and what I actually made on the journey were different. And rent was due, and it was all those things, right? And I normally would go out and hustle and close the gap. Y'all know how we do, you know, and make it work. But I just didn't have it in me. You know, I had been so deeply transformed by that journey, and I was really exhausted, and I needed to rest and just integrate. You know, y'all know how it is when you take those big trips and they're life-changing. You know, you need time when you come home to integrate and really appreciate everything that you've been through and everything that you've witnessed. And so I was there, and I couldn't, if I had wanted to, I could not get it up to hustle to save my life. And I really sort of fell to my knees, and I was like, I can't keep living like this. You know, and I said to Spirit, like, if this is where I am supposed to be, then you have to help me figure the money out. Because I can't do the hand to mouth thing. If this is really your work, and if this is really what there is for me, then show me. And Spirit said to me, get a business education.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Oh my.
And I laughed, and I said, wait a minute, did I hear that right? You know, right? What did you say, God? You need to get a business education. And truly, like days later, I was in a conversation with somebody, and they invited me to a seminar, and they had come back from some real estate thing, and they were listening to this particular presenter, and they were like, you got to listen to this seminar, and this audio seminar. And I started listening, and then there was an invitation to go to an event, and it led me into a whole circle of mentors and very accomplished businessmen who had built multi-million-dollar ventures from dust. And they were teaching people the principles and the concepts and the ideas associated with how do you make money, and how do you build a business, and how do you become financially prosperous. And I was finally in a room where I could talk about money and deal with money and look at myself in relationship to money, which is something that I haven't had the space to. You know, look at everything that I inherited. You know, my joke at the time was I had signed up for the poverty trifecta. You know, it was like spiritual, artist, and mission driven, right? But I was like, oh, I'm poor, and poor again. That's a lot of pores, Koya. I was like, okay. So, and you know, and though there was great work happening and phenomenal conversations and interactions happening in the context of those worlds, they weren't talking about money, not in a way that was empowered. And so unfortunately, I had to step out of those circles to be able to get a whole other set of knowledge and information in order to be able to figure out my own viability and sustainability. These incredible gentlemen helped me to have conversations that I just wasn't having, you know, to look at what does it mean for me to have money? What did it mean for me to make money? And what was in the way of me and my money? What were these layers and layers and layers and layers of conditioning that had been standing in the way of my money that I had no idea? Really, you know, I was mad with money, very much mad with money. So money wasn't looking for me.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think a lot of people have a very toxic relationship with money.
Yeah. So, you know, because of my activist upbringing, right? You know, I'm a change of life baby born into the intersection of civil rights and hip hop, I like to say. And my parents were born in the 1920s, survived 2 decades of Jim Crow segregation in this country. And the ability to have that firsthand narrative of what it was to live through that, you know, and to be raised by people who had to fight for basic dignity and respect, you know, in this country. I was shaped a particular way, oriented a particular way. So very community minded, very family oriented, very education oriented, but not money oriented, you know. And it was seen as being selfless, doing selfless work, doing God's work, doing the work of the people. And money didn't go hand in hand with that. Money was seen as a corrupter. Money was seen as something to be avoided, you know, because it changed the color or the integrity of your effort. And so, you know, the activist part in me had beef with capitalism, you know, and so it was all about rejecting anything that felt like it had to do with sales or related to money, any kind of monetary exchange, right? And then, you know, spiritual, you know, and all of the spiritual conditioning where, you know, you putting everything else first, you know, before the things of the flesh, right? Which is, you know, again, much of what was in, you know, my indoctrination at that time. And, you know, and then the artist, you know, conversation in terms of the struggling and the starving artist, and that, you know, we don't do it for the money, we do it for the art. And, you know, and so it's again, like layer upon layer of conversations, right? And all of it pushing me further and further away from any kind of vision or notion of prosperity for myself. And so in those rooms, I got to see those layers of conversation. And the thing that really broke me open one day was we were doing this exercise around wealth, and they were like, what is your vision for wealth? And I was pissed off. I mean, just truly, anytime we was going into these exercises, I was like, why are they asking me about all this wealth stuff? You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm not trying to be any of those arrogant rich people. You know, I just had a whole thing going on.
Right.
And I paused in this particular exercise because I realized that I couldn't even say the word wealth and me in the same sentence, right? Because they had us partner up and you were supposed to talk about it. And I couldn't talk about it. And I said this to my partner. I said, you know, this is the first time I realized that I can't even say the word wealth and me in the same sentence.
Wow.
And they were like, well, what do you mean? And it was in asking that question that I began to unearth that the reason why I held myself in a place of scarcity and in a place of poverty is because I did not want to abandon my people. And that somehow I had told myself that if I had more, that I would somehow sell out and become someone or be susceptible to behaviors that would betray the trust of the very people that I wanted to serve and the very people that I wanted to be arm in arm and hand in hand and eye to eye and heart to heart with. And I realized in that moment that somehow in that conversation, what I was saying to myself is that I could not be trusted with more. And that was the reason why I could not allow myself to have more. And I tell you, when I saw that, I cried like a baby because I was like, how is it that I allowed myself to become an enemy to myself? You know, that I told myself I could not be trusted, that I was so afraid of being corrupted and changed in a way that would alienate me from the people who I wanted to be in family and community with. And I was like, wow, we got to heal this. We got to heal this. And what I came to discover through the work in that room over the course of that weekend was that actually if I have more, I can do more. I can be more. I can create more. I can serve more. And that not only could I be trusted, but that if I was really serious about my vision for change, it was mandatory that I transform my relationship with having resources.
That is so powerful. And I feel like, especially right now, when things are hard and we are in the home, a lot of people are like, how do I step into that when resources are limited? You know, how do I step into my power? And I know you're a coach, so you coach people. So what is your advice to people right now who are like, I have a toxic relationship with money and I don't have any right now and I don't know what I'm going to do?
Yeah, it begins with being willing to really confront the nature of our conversation, because anything that we have materially begins as a conversation, and it begins in the center of our belief system. We have as much or as little as we believe we can have. We have as much or as little as we think we're entitled to, we're worthy of having. And one of the things that, you know, you and I have talked about this before, is that we don't even often realize the conversations that stand in the way of our money or that stand in the way of our success, right? You know, there are things from our past that we've not dealt with, not reconciled, not healed. And so because of those things, they stand in the way of the way that we perceive ourselves. They stand in the way of the way that we perceive what we're capable of or not capable of. They stand in the way of what we perceive we're entitled to or not entitled to. And truly, until we really can, with love and with great courage, face our inner dialogue, for better or worse, our exterior reality is not going to shift. And even when it does shift momentarily, we are troubled with trying to sustain it and maintain it. You know, and we hear these stories all the time of people who come into great fortune and then somehow 2 years later they're broke. And it has everything to do with our consciousness and the degree to which we have cultivated a belief system and a series of conversations that allow and enable more prosperity and more love and more generosity to flow to us. A lot of us have shame around money. Shame around things we've done with money or not done. Shame around things we've done for money. And we've been in those situations that have been desperate or challenging. And we've got to heal that. We've got to confront that. We've got to work through that so that we can create a new vision for ourselves and a new vision for our money.
Absolutely. And what are some of your favorite modalities to start to change that narrative?
Yeah. So, you know, we take people through a process in our work. And it's also, you know, in the book, we take people through a 6-step process that enables them to confront and see and recognize first, what are those conversations? Because it always begins with awareness, right? The second is acceptance. And this can be a hard one, Koya, because a lot of people stay stuck in just being aware. They think it's enough to be aware. But the truth is that we have to tell the truth to ourselves about the fact that not only do we have it going on, but that we actually have the power to shift it. We have the power to change it. So whatever that issue is, whatever that experience was, it doesn't have to be like this permanent fixture in our reality, this stain on our name or this scar that we walk around and carry. We actually have the ability to heal it. We actually have the ability to release, and we actually have the ability to let it go. And I take people through a 4-step forgiveness ritual and process. You know, and again, and this is in the book, that to help them actually release those incidences, those challenges, those circumstances, those situations that continue to keep us bound in this limited conversation when it comes to our money. Once we move through the step of forgiveness, then we literally have room to create a new vision and to create a new conversation. Right. And one of the things that I talk a lot about with the folks that we serve in our work at Move the Crowd is, you know, what is your money truth? What is the truth for you when it comes to your money? Because we also feel a lot of pressure to kind of grandstand around numbers that we may not really believe in, you know, right? Like I talk about this as well in the book. You know, it's like I was in a conversation with somebody, they were like, $1 million is chump change. I'm like, to who? On what planet, right? You know, and I say that because I I don't think we really recognize the sort of arrogance sometimes in those statements. Listen, there's nothing wrong with aspiring, to limitless possibilities, right? But there is something about you feeling like you have to be something you're not in order to be loved and accepted and appreciated and respected. That like somehow you don't get to be worthy of any of those things until you reach this particular milestone, which somehow enables you to walk on water, which is all quite untrue. But this is sort of what we get sold, right?
Right.
And we're not specific and we're not honest and authentic about what we really want. Because for some of us, we don't really want all of that. What we want is much more simple. What we want is much more easy. We want 3 really phenomenal vacations with the family. We want to live in a nice spot. We want to dress nice, or do things where we just don't have to think about money. It's just there. We want to go to dinner. We want to go out. We want to go shopping. It's just available to us. We can do it. You feel me, right? Some of us like that enough, right? And that is our vision for sufficiency. For others of us, we fancy. So, we might want a little...
A little extra,
because we want to express our creativity. We want to, whether it's how we dress or what we drive or what we live in or where we like extravagant vacations. We don't just want to go to Disney World. We want to go Bali or, wherever, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's about what aligns with your spirit and your creativity. And you want all these different ways that you can express yourself. And you need those resources to be able to do that. And then some of us have a very big vision. We understand we got work to do. We got lives to transform. We got things we want to change in the world. And in that particular instance, we recognize and understand that we need massive resources because we're trying to shift massive things in the world. Right. And so, and everywhere in between. And so wherever we fall, this opportunity to just be able to come into and align with what is true for us so that we then can honor and be in and celebrate in and find our power in what is true for us and be about the business of receiving and fulfilling on that.
Be about the business of receiving. I like that. Because especially as women, I feel like we're always giving, we're always nurturing, we're always pouring into.
Yeah.
But being able to receive the blessings, the abundance, the support.
Yeah. And the revolution for us is to give and receive from an abundant place. So even in the giving, because a lot of us, we giving and our cup is empty. I mean, cracked at the bottom, right? It's so dry. Exactly. Exactly. You know exactly where I'm going, Koya. You know exactly. I mean, bone dry, like not a drop in sight. And so we haven't even self-replenished enough to give. And so when we start to talk about your get paid vision in the book, I'm saying you have to create a whole new relationship with source that actually sources where you give and where you receive from. Like both need to come from a more abundant place. And that's about self-love. That's about self-care. That's about self-prioritization in honor of self and in honor of anything else that you may be up to in the world. It's necessary and vital that you give from a replenished and a resourced place.
And we got plenty of time. We at home and we at the house. And so it's plenty of time to pour into our cup and fill ourselves up and all that good stuff. And one thing that, you know, I know we spoke about before was, you know, you're really vocal about social justice. And a lot of times, you know, people will try and try, but because of systematic oppression and different things, it's so emotionally taxing.
Yeah.
What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, it's so great because, again, I talk about this in the book that I had to re-architect my activism, you all, from the ground up. When I came back from Rwanda, like I was doing traditional fist in the air activism when I came back from Rwanda. When Spirit got done with me and this work around abundance, my activism looked completely different. And so here's the thing that I want to say about this. We know and recognize that the challenges that we face in the world are great. And it is all the more reason why the way in which you take care of yourself is a direct correlation to the degree to which whatever you're building is going to be sustainable or viable or effective. So what do I mean when I say that? You have a responsibility to preserve your enthusiasm.
Mm.
You have a responsibility to preserve your joy.
Mm.
You have a responsibility to keep your light on. Because don't nobody want to follow a broke down revolution. And a
Right.
lot of us have been coming from, you hear what I'm saying, angst and dis-ease and dysfunction. And here's the deep thing about it, Koya. We're still doing amazing work. Even coming from those broken down places, we're still doing amazing work. But imagine, just imagine what would be possible for us and the movement if we could really come from a place of nourished and replenished love.
Mm.
If we could really come from a place of prosperity. Here's what I know. It is not my job to carry the dysfunction of racism.
Mm-hmm.
Not if I'm really interested in transforming it. It is actually my job to show up as the example of what happens once it's done, once it's transformed.
That is deep. That is so deep right there.
It is my responsibility as a Black woman to walk in infinite possibility. If I'm really committed to changing the game. It is my responsibility as a Black woman to show up in the opportunity that is available when I'm in my full power and I'm in my full voice and I'm in my full self, and to let the room or whatever else I'm interacting with rearrange around me, right? It's not my responsibility to come into the room and educate the room about why the room needs to rise to the occasion. My responsibility is to be and invite the room to rise just by virtue of the fact that I'm drawing breath and I'm in the room.
I love that. Your only responsibility is to be the light,
It's to
to
be
be
the
the
light.
love, to be
There
the
it is.
vibration.
There it is. And I say this because so many times we get to the table, we scrape and scratch to get to the table. And then we get to the table and we don't realize that we're there.
That's deep.
And what the opportunity of being there really is. So we keep speaking to the deficit. We keep speaking to the missing, the gap, as opposed to speaking to the vision.
Speak to the vision. Speak to the vision. Come on, teach us. So in speaking to the vision, what does that sound like? What does that look like?
Yeah. So y'all do this with me. Just close your eyes. And Koya, do this with me. Close your eyes. And I just want you to imagine yourself fully realized around any goal or aspiration you want right now. So maybe it's a book you're writing, and the aspiration is to have it be a #1 New York Times bestseller. Or maybe you're launching a new product or new service, and the goal is to earn 6 figures this year through that product or service. Whatever that aspiration is for you, and I'm giving you all examples, but I want you to think about specifically what it is. The more you're able to see this and feel into it, and allow yourself to actually feel what it feels like to have accomplished that. The more we bring our energy and our attention here to what we want to create, to who we want to be, to what we want to have, the more it begins to manifest and crystallize in our reality. It takes courage to stand here, especially in the face of no agreement. It takes faith to stand here when that 6 figures is not in your bank account yet. It takes discipline, which is really devotion, daily devotion, to stand here in order to actually vibrationally start to come from this place, to live from this place. But the more that we come here, and the more that we visit here, and the more that we live here, and operate from here, and see here, and feel here, the more that we begin to magnetize any and everything that is required to crystallize and materialize here. This is the process of conscious co-creation, and it is available to every single one of us. There is nothing between you and what you want to have or create but your conversation, your attention, and your intention. The more you bring your attention to what you intend, the more it becomes real in your reality. And this is our work. This is our work. So I want you to just take a nice deep breath now and just put your hands to your heart and speak out loud. I receive this. This is mine. If I can imagine it, this or something better is for me. And I allow the universe to bring me something better if it so chooses. But I walk with this as a done deal. And when I'm in my prayer, or when in my meditation, or in my yoga, all there is for me to do is give thanks. It's not my responsibility to figure it out. It's not my responsibility to manipulate or control my environment or other people. It is my responsibility to be open and allowing and receptive and obedient and surrendered to being guided on how I am to show up in order to receive this in my outward manifestation. Take another nice deep breath. And stay with this feeling, even as you bring yourself back into the room right now. Because we've spoken this together and we've held this space together, it is already so. Now just allow it to move towards you.
Thank you. That was so powerful. Y'all got a free little mini session from Miss Rha Goddess. So thank you so much for that treat. And I feel like that's what it takes, everyone, just to take that small little time to connect with spirit.
Yeah, that space. And it is just that those 2 minutes, those 3, before you walk into the meeting, before you pick up that phone, before you send that email, connect to that energy.
That just feels like intentional living. I know a lot of people's like, intentional living, intentional, but like you said, before you make that decision, before you walk into it, before, sit, breathe, connect.
Yeah.
That's intentional. Before you cook dinner even.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Success is about alignment. It's about being trued up to the truth of who you are, to the truth of the talents and the gifts that you've been given to bring, and to the truth of whatever it is that you are here to impact or affect in the world. And that's more of a receptive exercise than it is a grabbing and forcing and pushing exercise. Surrender is more about what we're peeling away than it is about what we're putting on, you all. The more you peel away, the easier it gets.
I love that. I love that. And I think right now, people are starting to go within and are starting to get it. But, you know my book, Let Your Fears Make You Fierce. I feel like that fear still creeps in.
Yeah.
That fear creeps in when more people are dying every day. That fear creeps in when there's an argument in the home. That fear creeps in when you were loading up on toilet tissue. Now you go to the store and it's all gone. You're like, oh, maybe I should have got more. So what do you do when that fear creeps in?
Yeah. This is why this is a practice. And I speak this as a practice. And y'all will get to know me in this. I'm very big on practicing.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely do we get a one and done, because we will remember and then 2 minutes later we will forget, right? Or life, let me say, is designed, right, to grow you, which means that the distractions are real. And so anytime you feel that fear, your opportunity is to just come back to yourself and say, I got you. And let yourself feel it. The average feeling takes 90 seconds. If you allow it, takes 90 seconds to move through the body, top to bottom. And if you allow it and you honor it and you bow to it and you let yourself move through it, right, then something will show up different 90 seconds later, right? And I say this because it's fascinating when you consider people stay angry for 20 years, right? Because we just keep re-triggering the anger. We just keep thinking on it's again, wherever we bring our attention grows. Right? So we just keep bringing our attention to the thing, and the anger gets, and then we suppress it, right? And then that blossoms and grows and festers. And so we have to learn how to release and move through. Our emotions are intellect and guidance. So it's not to resist them or suppress them or push them down, but actually to lean into them, embrace them, respect them, understand what your fear is pointing to. But then also you have the ability to comfort and soothe yourself through that fear and continue to move forward.
Yes. Continue to move forward. And I love that you reiterate it's a practice, because I feel like some people see people like yourself or me and they think, oh, they got it all together and they never have a bad day and lucky them, they've got it all figured out. But I'm like, I was crying yesterday. Yeah. Like I had like I was just like, whew. Had a tough conversation I didn't think I was going to have. And, I like how you say it's a practice, because I see life as like a school, and you're not just like one day you're done. It's like, no, you graduated to the next level and now you're going to get bigger tests, oh no, you have more money, you have more friends. Now some tests on top of tests. Oh, you have a family, you have that romantic partner you want. Okay, let's go some more tests in there. So I feel like the more the outside world might see a blessing, there's a lot of challenges and things to be practiced, if you even want to look at it like that, that comes with that territory.
Yes. Ashe. And, what we all have to just know is that life is designed to grow you. And it's so interesting that you're talking about success, because literally this is the next book that's coming, is to talk about what happens when we achieve those things that we've always dreamed of, because there is a whole new set of challenges that come. And how do we learn to navigate those challenges, and the way that those challenges trigger us all the way back to childhood, right? Trigger us all the way back. You feel what I mean? Like we can feel brand new again, and sometimes in the waters of what we're dealing with and what we're being tested around. So our practices become vital. I said the higher you rise, the deeper you need to go, because you're managing so many more things now. The stiller you need to become. The bigger the vision, the stiller the energy, because the depth is what is your reservoir. It is what gives you the capacity to be able to meet the challenges day in and day out. So the practice is real, and it's everything.
That is so powerful. That is so powerful. And I like that we keep bringing it back to the practice, because I have to say that until even being here, being in the home, I feel more powerful than I've ever felt in my life. I'm giving more to myself, more to my community, more to my friends and family, because I'm not driving, I'm not flying, I'm not going, a million places. And now I have more time to not self-care in a massage and then self-care in the nails and then self-care someone else. it's all happening within, and that energy is contained. And I'm like, this is a new normal for me.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people don't have that privilege. They may be sick or might have had a loved one die. And I feel like it is our opportunity of being well to honor lives by being well and sharing and helping heal, so that we can all be on this vibration and realize it's going to take all of us vibrating higher and stepping into the highest version of ourselves for humanity to heal.
Yeah, absolutely true. It is the best thing that we could do, is to heal ourselves. That's the greatest contribution you can ever make to humanity. Because when you heal yourself, and when I say heal yourself, to me, it's about coming home to you. Mm-hmm. It's about becoming, realizing, recognizing, reclaiming the wholeness that you are, the fullness and the life that you are. When you do that, everything flows from that. Mm-hmm. You make your greatest contribution. It's not even a question. You just do.
Right. You just do. You just do. All right. Well, we have gone all the way to the depths of the soul and come all the way out. And so as we're wrapping up, I just want to just give a couple, little tips to the community and share some of your resources. So I'm going to ask you right now, what are you reading, or what are some of your favorite books?
Oh, well, I'm starting your book, which I can't, listen, I'm like, so that's happening. Another book, and it's interesting, it just happens to be next to me, and this is a book that I carry and walk with, and because we talked so much about money this time around, I thought I would share this with your beloveds. So this is the Abundance book by a very wise man by the name of John Randolph Price. And in this book, there is a 40-day, first of all, you can see how beat up this book is, right? You all.
Oh, it's well loved.
Like, well loved. Well loved, right? Beat up with love, right? And within this book, in the middle of this book, there is a 40-day prosperity plan that consists of 10 mantras and meditations. And you do 4 cycles of the meditation and mantra. And so I want to highly recommend this to folks. This book is $7. And I will tell you that this book has transformed me at every level of prosperity that I have risen to, I've grown to, evolved to. I reached to this book and I do the 40-day plan. And the way that the plan works is if you skip a day, you go back to day 1. So don't worry about how long it takes you to get through the 40 days consecutively. Be in the practice. This is about building that next level of practice of devotion. And the muscle that you build in doing this is going to serve you everywhere else. And I will tell you that I've had people do this plan and all kinds of things have opened up, from job opportunities to unexpected money to, right? And I will also say to you that it's less about the material and more about the energy of where this takes you. In other words, you become more receptive through the process. If you allow it, you will become more receptive and more guided in all of your affairs, but particularly in the context of your money. So that's one for sure.
Loving it. Grabbing it. Get my $7 copy. And what are your favorite podcasts? Do you love listening to podcasts?
So I listen to Reboot, which I love. Jerry Colonna, who I love, is another, sort of mystic coach, entrepreneurial coach. Is very, very big in the startup podcast world. I think we talked about that. I also listen to Kate Northrup and Mike Watts.
Love them.
Jenna Kutcher and Gold Digger. I listen to, oh my God, who else am I? Oh, there's so many people who I'm like, and some people like I'm listening to now, and some people are like on my list. But there's one more that I've been like just so intrigued by. I want to say, I think it's called The Creative Life. And it's all about talking about the artistic process or the creative process of people who have manifested and produced incredible projects in the world. And so that's another one that I listen to, just because I'm always interested in how the creative mind works. So those are some of my favorites.
I love that. I love that. And what does love mean to you?
It means home. It means I'm willing to really surrender to all of who I am so that I can be love and I can be loved.
Mm.
You know, it's home. It's home base. It's foundation. Um, and again, it's all about what I'm giving up. So much more about what I'm giving up ever than what I'm putting on or trying. Trying to make happen. It's what I'm
Mm.
allowing, what I'm willing to allow. It's just so much about surrender and letting go.
Ashe. So beautiful. And last question. If coming out of this time in quarantine, whether when this comes out, we're still in it or not, if it could be Rha's world, what would the world look like?
Mm. So I have called this the sacred pause. That's been my way of framing it as this is a pause for the cause. And
I love it.
the cause is you. Let's be clear. Your mental, spiritual, emotional, physical, and financial well-being. And I know I'm saying the financial part because people feel like money is precarious right now. But the truth is that if you can be still and if you can listen, there is valuable information that is being disseminated for every single one of us about what is next for us in our life, in our relationships, in our health and well-being, and in our money. And so my wish for us is that we receive our downloads and that we are operating in concert with and in obedience to what it is that we've received. And that because we are, our world is healthier, our world is happier, our world is more abundant and plentiful and bountiful. And that people really do connect to that which is calling them. And that they emerge from this time and this space on fire about where they're being called and where they're being led, which is into the truest form of who they are and into the highest form of whatever it is that they're here to bring and offer into the world. So that is my wish.
I like your world. It's so beautiful. It's so wonderful. Oh, well, thank you so much. It has been such a treat to have you on, my sister. I am just overjoyed about your book, The Calling. So y'all, if you don't have it already, definitely get you a copy of The Calling, 3 Fundamental Shifts to Stay True, Get Paid, and Do Good. All of those go hand in hand. The trifecta, the new trifecta.
The new trifecta.
The new trifecta, right? So The Calling, highly recommended, and just, move the crowd. You're helping so many people. And, I just want to thank you so much for spending this sweet time with us, because I just value you as a sister, value you as a leader. And I'm just grateful.
Thank you so much, Koya. And thank you for your work. Thank you for who you be, your light, your brilliance. You transform so many lives, my sister. So it's my joy to stand with you and play with you and dream with you. Really.
Ashe, 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 ashe. Thank you so much, y'all, for listening, for just sitting with us, for being part of the conversation, for being part of the community. I love you. I thank you. I appreciate you. Until next time, love yourself, love others, and love the planet one day at a time, one breath at a time. Peace and love.